Krishna. Hari Hari, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. So, why am I coming on the camera like this? Why am I doing this? Am I like some great preacher? Am I like very intelligent and I can entertain, or I'm very talented and I can entertain people? No. None of those things. I was thinking about it. Why I come on the camera like this is because you don't see older people very much in the West. Like in India, they're all walking around and, it's the full spectrum of stages of life is visible in other cultures like India. But in the West, very materialistic and very much focused on appearances, they're shuffled away into like old age homes and senior living and like that. And also the way that society is structured, older people can't function very well you have to drive a car. Everything's like fast lane, fast pace, supermarkets, maybe Walmart, you get to see a little more of a spectrum of, you get to see everything in there. But for the most part, because it's not very attractive. Look at this, everything's sagging, and it's like, but I think it's important to be able to see it, because it's just part of life, real life, not just make-believe show bottle life, but real life. So that's why, come on. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. I'm just an old person, an old body that's been chanting Hare Krishna for quite a while and having a good time in Krishna consciousness. Doing what I can do, and that's kind of like less and less as time goes on. Less and less externally, and more internal stuff going on, which, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. So all you youngins out there, with all your bouncy energy and the luster and beauty of a youthful body and active mind, use it for Krishna. Then later on, when it's like this, you won't lament, because you used your youth and your youthful energy in trying to serve Krishna, especially chanting Hare Krishna. It really is all about the chanting. It really is all about the holy name. Everything. It's all about the holy name. It's all about the holy name. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. It said that if a person calls out in complete surrender and helplessness, even once, the holy name of the Lord. He has many names. I chant Krishna's name, and my friends and associates all chant Krishna's name, but he has many names. But his call out in helplessness and surrender the holy name of the Lord, even once. I can't remember exactly what happens. His old age, he's a senior event here, I can't remember. But just calling out once like that is actually enough. Because we have that example of Ajamil from a very old scripture. Ajamil. He was born in a Brahmin family, a Brahminical family. This goes back millenniums. This is one of the oldest accounts there is. And it has stood the test of time. And it's all about calling out for the Lord, the holy name. And he was born in a Brahmin family. And he was practicing. He was doing his mantras. He was performing his fire sacrifice yagnas. And he was practicing in Brahminical life, Brahminical culture, Brahminical service. But he became attracted to sex. And he saw a couple, a low-class couple, engaging in some sexual activity in public, which was very rare. Now it's commonplace, but in the time Ajamil was living, it was very rare. And he became agitated. He wanted that. He wanted to experience that. And he fell down. He actually took that prostitute away from the person she was with and claimed her as his own and spent his whole life with her, enjoying. His life was pretty bad after that because society was very structured, and how could he earn a living? He had to steal, he had to lie, he had to cheat. Who knows what else he did to get money to live, to support his wife. So his life really... But as a very old man, as he was leaving his body, the agents of Yamaraj came into his presence, and they were going to take him when the body stopped working. They were going to take him, the soul, to the court of Yamaraj for judgment. And boy, it would have been some heavy stuff coming down on him. Reactions, material reactions. And but he saw he had a baby. He's like really, really old man. I don't know how old, but 80, 90, who knows how old he was. He's a very, very old man. And he just had a baby. Got somebody pregnant, believe it or not. His wife pregnant. And they had a baby. And the small child was playing near the bed. And Ajamil was attached to his children. He called out for the child as he saw the agents of Yamaraj coming to get him. He called out in helplessness and surrender. Ryan! What? He wasn't calling. His consciousness wasn't, he was calling for Narayan, Lakshmi Narayan. He was just calling for his little son, who he had named Narayan. It's kind of like a cultural thing to name your children spiritual names. He named his son Narayan Das. Because he called out like that. The holy name is so powerful. Don't have to understand it. It's nice to try because it's fun to try to understand more about Krishna. But it's not necessary. If the mood of surrender and helplessness is there, and with Ajamil, it wasn't even, he was calling for God. He wasn't even calling for God. He was calling for his little son. But the name of God is absolute. And when he called out like that, the servants of Narayan came, the Vishnu Dutas. They heard somebody call for their master. And they came in their airplane. And they saw the Yamadutas there, and they said, wait, you can't take him. He's calling out for Vishnu, for Narayan. He's sinless. All his sins he's not held accountable. There's no reactions for this man. He called out in complete helplessness and surrender for God. Wiped clean. Wiped clean. There was some discussion that went on, and the Yamadutas had never come across this before. For such a sinful person, they didn't. So Yamaraj had to explain to them the how that worked. Hare Krishna. So evidently, Ajamil didn't leave his body at that time. He got an extension, so he could try to clean himself up a little bit more before leaving. And he immediately left for one of the holy places. I can't remember which, and tried to clean himself up to actually get ready to go nicely back to Godhead. Talk about a near-death experience. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. And by the mercy of the Lord, you don't even have to understand intellectually everything. Because it's not possible to understand everything anyway. But if somebody has that tendency to want to try to understand everything, well, there's plenty of stuff to try to understand. Just don't forget to take shelter of Krishna while you're doing it. But Shimananda Shain and the devotees from Bengali devotees, they were all on their way to visit Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Jagannath Puri. And a dog joined the party. Dogs are far out. They're really far out. I've been watching the dog competitions. It's a hoot. It's fun. They are amazing what dogs will do to please their master. It's amazing. I'm looking like, oh my God, I wish I had that. What that dog has. They can do incredible feats of whatever. And they're so happy to do it. They're like barking and jumping and tail wagging to please their master. Yeah. Hare Krishna. And Prabhupada mentioned like that. He's Krishna's dog. Please, you please the dog, the master's pleased. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So they were traveling to visit Lord Chaitanya, and a dog joined the party. Tag along, and he's hearing Hare Krishna because they're chanting. And the dog, he ran ahead. See, he didn't have to worry about lodging or all these different things, and he could go really fast. So he just ran ahead. And he got to Lord Chaitanya before they did. And when they got there, the devotees from Bengal, they saw Lord Chaitanya feeding directly from his hand some green coconut pulp to the dog. The dog was relishing the green coconut pulp. How many dogs do you know that eat green coconut pulp? He got there. What did he understand? The dog. What did he understand? Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. You know, at the time of death, it's described that the mind races, you know, because the mind's service is to try to make the body comfortable, to serve the senses, to solve problems. And so, like, you know, if it's too cold, then the mind says, go get a sweater. If you're hungry, the mind says, go get something to eat. The mind is solving all these problems for the body and the senses. It's a problem-solving thing. So at the time of death, it's a big problem. You can't breathe, or the body is aching, or there's all these different things start to happen because the soul is getting ready to leave. So the mind starts to race to find a solution, because the mind lives in the body also. The body and the mind's going to get kicked out as well as the soul. So the mind's racing, and it'll go over the whole life. You know, what happened when you were 1 year old, if you can remember that far, or 5 years old, or what happened when you were 4 years old, or looking for an answer. Like, you know, when you lose your wallet or your car keys, the mind starts to race, doesn't it? Now, where did I leave it? Did I leave it in the car? Did I leave it in the store? Where is it? Somebody stole it, right? That's usually when you find it, when you accuse somebody. But the mind starts to race because it's got to find that. That's very important. That wallet, boy, without that wallet, I'm up the creek without a paddle, without a wallet, or the keys, I can't go anywhere. So the mind starts to race. So at the time of death, the mind starts to race. It's trying to find a solution. Is it this pill? Is it that pill? What about this doctor or that doctor? Or what is the solution? Find a solution. Find a solution. Because racing. The only solution is Krishna. In complete helplessness and surrender, calling out Krishna. Yeah, at the time of death, you can be going over verses. Possibly, I don't think I will be. I'm just going to be calling out for Krishna. I'm just going to call out. And if I can't call out physically, I'll just call out internally. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare. It's all there in the holy name. It's all there. So I come on the camera like this, it's not a show, it's not to entertain. It's just, I'm an old person, and who knows how long, I might not have very much longer. So I just want to, I think it's important for people to see an old person. Like I say, in this culture, especially in the West, old people are shuffled off into special places like senior centers, old age homes, retirement villages, because the way this, especially in the West, like in America especially, the way everything it runs is very high tech, high speed, fast lane, cars, 80 miles an hour. You have to be very technologically savvy and like really kind of quick thinking just to check out at the supermarket. Other cultures are kind of like following suit, but they're not quite there yet. America's kind of the forerunner on that, although Europe and other countries are catching up. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So seeing old people isn't very attractive. You're kind of slow and they're not. But it's important because it gives the full spectrum of the human experience. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So I'm going to read a little something about Krishna. Wrong glasses. Krishna Chaitanya. Can I see with these? Yeah, they're not too bad. I can read. The other ones are better, but wait a minute. Maybe they're in here. Yay! The other ones are in here. Okay. This is Uddhava visits Vṛndāvana. Uddhava visits Vṛndāvana. These pastimes of Krishna are so filled with emotional exchanges, loving pastimes. Everything's there. Fun and games, anger, fear. It's all in these pastimes on the transcendental plane. And it's the summary study of Srimad Bhagavatam by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Thank you, Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. Okay, so Uddhava is related to Krishna. He's a cousin brother. And Krishna is feeling missing. He's actually missing the life that he had in Vṛndāvana, the pastimes he was sharing in Vṛndāvana, because now he's had to take on some other kinds of duties in the royal family in Mathura, because he was actually born in a royal family in Mathura and was hidden during a time of difficulties, bad rulers. He was hidden in a village and raised by village people. Very attached to Krishna. And but now he's had to take up the duties of the royal order. So he's missing this loving relationship that he had. He engages in with the village people. So they're missing him. So he's sending his cousin, the son of his father, the father's brother, son of his father's brother, sending Uddhava with a message. And also he wants Uddhava to see and experience a little bit of what he was experiencing in those pastimes in the village. Because Uddhava's in the royal order also, the royal family. Uddhava is described as the most exalted personality in the Vrishni dynasty, almost equal to Krishna. He was a great friend and on account of being the direct student of Brihaspati, the teacher and priest of the heavenly planets, he was very intelligent and sharp in decision. From the intellectual standpoint, he was highly qualified. Krishna, being a very loving friend of Uddhava, wanted to send him to Vṛndāvana just to study the highly elevated, ecstatic devotional service practice there. Even if one is highly elevated in material education and is even the disciple of Brihaspati, he still has to learn from the gopis and the residents of Vṛndāvana how to love Krishna to the highest degree. Sending Uddhava to Vṛndāvana with a message to the residents of Vṛndāvana to pacify them was Krishna's special favor to Uddhava. Lord Krishna's name is Hari, which means one who takes away all the distress from the surrendered souls. Lord Chaitanya states that there cannot be at any time a worship as exalted as that realized by the gopis. Being very anxious about the gopis' grief, Krishna talked with Uddhava and politely requested him to go to Vṛndāvana. Shaking Uddhava's hand with his own hands, he said, "My dear gentle friend Uddhava, please go immediately to Vṛndāvana and try to pacify my father and mother, Nanda Maharaj and Yasoda Devi, and the gopis. They're very much grief-stricken, as if suffering from great ailments. Go and give them a message. I hope their ailments will be partially relieved. The gopis are always absorbed in thoughts of me. They have dedicated body, desire, life, and soul to me. I am anxious not only for the gopis, but for anyone who sacrifices society, friendship, love, and personal comforts for me. It is my duty to protect such exalted devotees. The gopis are the most dear. They're always thinking of me in such a way that they remain overwhelmed and almost dead in anxiety due to separation from me. They are keeping alive simply by thinking that I am returning to them very soon." Requested by Lord Krishna, Uddhava immediately left on his chariot and carried the message to Gokula. He approached Vṛndāvana at sunset, when the cows were returning home from the pasturing ground. Uddhava and his chariot were covered by the dust raised by the hoofs of the cows. I got to visit Vṛndāvana a couple times. 1977, the year Prabhupada passed away. In 1978, again, I got to go. And I went from Vṛndāvana to Mathura, and in a rickshaw, where guy rides the bicycle, and it took about 20 minutes on a rickshaw to go from Vṛndāvana to Mathura. I had to go to the police station. Hare Krishna. When I was there, I'd been given some funds to purchase oils for the deities back in the States. And I went to the wrong oil dealer, scented oils. And he did like all kinds of shuffle with me. And I ended up giving him a lot of funds for 2 little bottles. And the devotees told me, "Boy, did you get cheated. You went to the wrong one. He took all your money and gave you nothing." And I was like, oh no, how can I went to the police. That was the trip. I went to the police, and they didn't want to deal with it, but I did what do you call it? I went on a tirade. And what did I say? I said, "I've come all the way from America to visit here for Krishna, and now I come to Mathura, and I'm cheated. What am I going to tell everyone when I go back?" And I was like screaming and yelling in the police station. And immediately they came to attention Oh, for Krishna. Yes, we must do something. And they opened their files, and all the papers in the files had been eaten by silverfish. He pulled up one thing, and there was nothing there, just where it had been connected to the... It had all been eaten by silverfish, and who knows what else was in there eating the paper. And so then, what are we going to do? So they said the chief of the police sent one of his constables with me. He had a spear, and we went to, I don't know, did we take rickshaws? I can't remember how we got to the oil cellar, the oil walla. We got there, and the man gave back all the money, and I gave him the oil. And the constable told me, he says, now you have ruined this man. No one will ever buy anything from him ever again. He's ruined. You ruined his business. And I was like, It's a very different culture. But anyway, it was Krishna, obviously. We got to have that experience. Krishna. So, Uddhava, he's gone from Mathura in his chariot. He didn't go in a rickshaw, he went in a chariot. And it was covered by dust, raised by the hoofs of the cows. He saw bulls running after cows for mating. Other cows with overladen milk bags were running after the calves to fill them with milk. Uddhava saw that the entire land of Vṛndāvana was filled with white cows and their calves. Cows were running here and there all over Gokula, and he could hear the sound of milking. Every residential house in Vṛndāvana was decorated for the worship of the sun god and the fire god, and for the reception of guests, cows, brahmanas, and demigods. Yeah, I've been attending some nice Zoom sessions where they're discussing these kinds of things. And so here, every residential house in Vṛndāvana was decorated for the worship of the sun god and the fire god. So we also know they worship Indra for rain. So they're worshiping the demigods. So the question was coming up in that group was Vṛndāvana, don't they worship Krishna? What about Krishna? Well, their worship of the demigods, because they're serving Krishna, is for serving Krishna. It's not that, they want something for themselves. Give me money, give me this, give me that. It's not that type of... it's a village, and they're worshiping the demigods so that they can keep the village in good shape. Rain, ample sunshine, fire for performing the sacrifices and cooking the offering to Krishna. But their relationship with Krishna is not formal like that. Their worship of Krishna is in love. They just love Krishna. So when they're offering food to Krishna, it's not like, they're ringing bells and bowing down and saying mantras. They're just cooking out of love in their heart, and they're feeding. Mother Soda's breastfeeding Krishna. Or they're cooking other things. They're making sweets, giving little packages of sweets for Krishna to go take with him, and enough for his boyfriends too when they go out with the cows. And so, yeah, they're worshiping Krishna, but not like they're worshiping the demigods. It's formal. They're ringing bells, they're making offerings, like that. It's very formal. But they're worshiping Krishna in love, as the most lovable child, the most lovable youth, most attractive young man, young boy. He's not actually a man in Vṛndāvana. He's a man later on. He takes up his duties in the royal order. Then he's more like a man. He's more mature. But in Vṛndāvana, he's a youth. He's a boy, a young boy in Vṛndāvana. Boyhood pastimes, childhood pastimes, baby pastimes. That's all in Vṛndāvana. Hare Krishna. So, every residential house in Vṛndāvana was decorated for the worship of the sun god and the fire god, and for the reception of guests, cows, Brahmins, and demigods. Every home was illuminated with light and incense arranged for sanctification. All over Vṛndāvana there were nice flower garlands, flying birds, and the humming sound of the bees. The lakes were filled with lotus flowers and with ducks and swans. Quite a place. Uddhava entered the house of Nanda Maharaj and was received as a representative of Vasudeva. Nanda Maharaj offered him a place and sat down with him to ask about messages from Krishna, Balaram, and other family members in Mathura. He could understand Uddhava was a very confidential friend of Krishna, and therefore must have come with good message. It was described earlier that Uddhava looked a lot like Krishna. He had the same bodily coloring, like a bluish tone, and his features, long black hair, and his features, he looked a lot like Krishna. My dear Uddhava, how is my friend Vasudeva enjoying life? He is now released from the prison of Kamsa, and he is now with his friends and his children, Krishna and Balaram. So he must be very happy. Tell me about him and his welfare. We are also very happy that Kamsa, the most sinful demon, is now killed. He was always envious of the family of the Yadus, his friends and relatives. Now, because of his sinful activities, he's dead and gone, along with all his brothers. Please let us know whether Krishna is remembering his father and mother and his friends and companions in Vṛndāvana. Does he like to remember his cows, his gopis, his Govardhan Hill, his pasturing ground in Vṛndāvana? Krishna. Krishna. 12 noon. Thank you. His cows, his gopis, his Govardhan Hill, his pasturing ground in Vṛndāvana? Or has he forgotten all these now? Is there any possibility of his coming back to his friends and relatives so that we can see again his beautiful face with raised nose and lotus-like eyes? We remember how he saved us from the forest fire, how he saved us from the great snake Kaliya in the Yamuna, how he saved us from so many other demons, and we simply think how much we are obliged to him for giving us protection in so many dangerous situations. My dear Uddhava, when we think of Krishna's beautiful face and eyes and his different activities here in Vṛndāvana, we become so overwhelmed that all our activities cease. We simply think of Krishna, how he used to smile, and how he looked upon us. When we go to the banks of the Yamuna and other lakes of Vṛndāvana, or near Govardhan Hill or the pasturing ground, we see that the impressions of Krishna's footprints are still on the surface of the earth. We remember playing in those places. We remember him playing in these places because he was constantly visiting them. When his appearance within our minds becomes manifest, we immediately become absorbed in thought of him. We think, therefore, that Krishna and Balaram may be chief demigods in heaven who have appeared before us like ordinary boys in order to execute particular duties on earth. This was also foretold by Garga Muni when making Krishna's horoscope. If Krishna were not a great personality, how could he have killed Kamsa? He possessed the strength of 10,000 elephants. Besides Kamsa, there were very strong wrestlers, as well as the giant elephant Kuvalepita. All these animals and demons were killed by him, just as a lion kills an ordinary animal. How wonderful it is that Krishna took in one hand the big, heavy bow made of 3 joined palm trees and broke it very quickly. That bow was made of 3 joined palm trees. How wonderful it is that continually for 7 days he held up Govardhan Hill in one hand. How wonderful it is that he has killed all the demons like Pralambashura, Dhenukashura, Aristashura, Trinavarta, and Bakashura. They were so strong that even the demigods and the heavenly planets were afraid of them, but Krishna killed them as easily as anything. So Nanda Maharaj is thinking, Krishna is certainly an elevated soul. He must be one of the chief demigods. While describing the uncommon activities of Krishna before Uddhava, Nanda Maharaj gradually became overwhelmed and could not speak anymore. As for Mother Yasoda, she sat by the side of her husband and heard the pastimes of Krishna without speaking. She was simply crying incessantly, and milk was pouring from her breast. When Uddhava saw Maharaj Nanda and Yasoda so extraordinarily overwhelmed with thoughts of Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and when he experienced their extraordinary affection for him, he also became overwhelmed and began to speak as follows. My dear Mother Yasoda and Nanda Maharaj, you are most respectable among human beings because no one but you can meditate in such transcendental ecstasy. Wait till he meets the gopis. Both Balaram and Krishna are the original personalities of Godhead from whom the cosmic manifestation is emanating. They are chief among all personalities because both of them are the effective cause of this material creation. Material creation is conducted by the Purusha incarnations, who are all acting under Krishna and Balaram. By their partial representation, they enter in the hearts of all living entities. They are the source of all knowledge and all forgetfulness also. This is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita, 15th chapter. I am present in everyone's heart, and I cause one to remember and to forget. I am the original compiler of the Vedanta, and I am the actual knower of the Vedas. If at the time of death a person can fix his pure mind upon Krishna, even for a moment, he becomes eligible to give up the material body and appear in his original spiritual body, just as the sun rises with all illumination. I'm not surprised at this at all. Here's the synchronicity. Just a few minutes ago, I was talking about remembering Krishna at the time of death, and that if you call out complete helplessness, surrender, even once, which is like for a moment, and then I couldn't remember exactly what happens, but here it is. It explains what happens. Remember Krishna, call out for Krishna at the time of death. He becomes eligible to give up this material body. And that's what happened to Ajamil. When he called out for Narayan like that, he became eligible to give up the material body and appear in his original spiritual body, just as the sun rises with all illumination. Passing from his life in this way, he immediately enters the spiritual kingdom, Vaikuntha. This is the result of Krishna conscious practice. So, Hare Krishna, don't you want one of those bodies? Man, I'm telling you, you like these bodies? Boy, don't you want one of those? Never gets old, never gets sick, never dies. It's full of bliss and ecstasy, full of knowledge, eternal. Don't you want one of those? You know, you have nothing to lose, really. Because by chanting Hare Krishna, life is really a lot of fun. So, even if it isn't true, it is. But even if it isn't, what did you lose? You didn't lose anything. You had a good time. And if it is true, and it is, you get one of those bodies. So it's a win-win. Chant Hare Krishna. Hear about Krishna. Become happy in this life. And get one of those other kind of bodies. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. So Prabhupada goes on to explain about that. He says, if we practice Krishna consciousness in this present body, while we are in a healthy condition and in good mind, simply by chanting the holy Maha Mantra Hare Krishna, we will have every possibility of fixing our mind upon Krishna at the time of death. If that is done, then our life becomes successful without any doubt. Similarly, if we keep our mind always absorbed in fruitive activities for material enjoyment, then naturally at the time of death we shall think of such activities and again be forced to enter into a material, conditioned body to suffer the threefold miseries of material existence. Therefore, to remain always absorbed in Krishna consciousness was the standard of the inhabitants of Vṛndāvana, as exhibited by Maharaj Nanda, Yasoda, and the gopis. If we can simply follow their footsteps, even to a minute portion, our lives will surely become successful, and we will enter into the spiritual kingdom, Vaikuntha. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Jai all the Vaishnavacharyas. Vanchikalpatarubhyascha, Kripasindhavyevacha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo, Namo Namaha. Krishna. So Uddhava is going to continue on, but I'm going to stop here and Hare Krishna. Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Giridhar, Shiva Siddhi Gaura Bhakta.